We're being filmed tonight, so hope you're all looking your best on camera. If not, it's too late, he said. Right, let me introduce myself, ask my colleagues to do the same, and to give Julie a hint, I'll start at that end and go around the table in just a moment. So, my name is David King. I'm the current chair of the Joint Committee for Tendring, Colchester Borders, Garden Community, which draws together the three relevant local authorities, Tendring, Colchester and Essex County Council. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves around this table, starting if I may with Councillor Julie Young.
Good evening, Chair, members. Julie Young, representing Greenstead Ward.
Councillor Mark Cossons, Tendring District Council.
Good evening, Chairman. Mark Platt, Deputy Cabinet Member for Highways, Infrastructure and Sustainable Transport, and deputising this evening for Leslie Wagland.
Good evening, Councillor Luxford Vaughan. I am the portfolio holder for Planning, Environment and Sustainability at Colchester City Council and ward member for Wyvern High.
Good evening, Chairman. Councillor Andy Baker, Tendring District Council, Eastcliff Ward, which is Holland-on-Sea, Clacton. I'm also the portfolio holder for Housing and Planning at Tendring. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman. Councillor Carlo Guglielmi. I'm the chairman of the Local Plan and Planning Policy Committee at Tendring District Council, and I'm also an Essex County Councillor for the division of Tendring Rural West.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm Councillor Lee Scott, Vice Chairman of this committee and the Cabinet Member for Housing, Planning and Regeneration for Essex County Council.
Good evening, Andrew Weavers, Head of Governance and Monitoring Officer at Colchester City Council.
Lisa Hastings, Corporate Director of Law and Governance and Monitoring Officer at Tendring District Council. And to my left we have Bethany Jones and Ian Ford, who are from Tendring District Council's Democratic Services, who provide administration to the committee.
Good evening, Chairman. So Gary Guyver, I'm Corporate Director at Tendring District Council with responsibility for planning and community and strategic responsibility on planning on this project.
Good evening, Jonathan Schiffers. I'm Head of Housing, Growth and Garden Communities at Essex County Council.
Hello, Amy Lester. I'm the Planning Manager for the Garden Community Project team. Thank you.
Good evening, Christopher Downs, Garden Communities Manager, Essex County Council.
Good evening, Paul Wilkinson, Principal Transport Planner and Infrastructure Planner, New Communities, Essex County Council and Tendring Colchester Borders Garden Community. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the officials team, and once again a big welcome to all of those in the room, speaking or listening, and to those who will dial in, I have no doubt, to catch up later on. I'm sorry for those who are tracking the time that we're starting a little late, unavoidably. Okay, so we're into the agenda, which has been published along with all of the papers on the Garden Community website run by our Tendring colleagues. And I'll go into in the logic of the order of the agenda. The first item, which is the election of the chairman of the Joint Committee, Carlo.
Chairman, thank you. I would like to propose Councillor Lee Scott for the office of chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Carlo. I second that. So I'm going to ask if there are any alternatives. Councillor Luxembourg.
Yeah, I just wanted to check. My understanding of our terms of reference are that the chair alternates between Tendring and Colchester. Obviously, Councillor Scott is an Essex County councillor. I understand that it's Tendring that want to propose him. So does this mean that they forfeit their year in that role and then it comes back to us, or are we now doing a three-way split? Could you have that clarified, please?
Well, Carlo, would you like to offer a view?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, we've gone out kilter anyway because Colchester's had the chair for the past 2 years, and therefore Tendring should have the chair for the next 2 years. But having said that, the terms of reference do not stipulate that the chairmanship is alternate between Colchester and Tendring. There was a verbal agreement between the two authorities.
I'm really clear that and this is the most, you and I have had this conversation, but I think thank you for raising it, because I want to be really clear for those who have an interest in this. The only way in which we can be successful is if we work together. If at any time, any one of the three local authorities, whether it's county, Tendring or Colchester, it is pulling away from this project, so far we've held together, and the progress is evident, and we're talking about that later on, then we're in serious trouble. So the chair reflects the challenge for the year and does their best to deliver for it. But this is a collective enterprise, and I hope it will reassure everybody that actually that we're having some change in the chair. For 2 years, I'm very pleased to hand it over, which I will do at the end of this meeting, I should add. I'll ask the monitoring officers' advice on this. I do not believe there's any reason why we cannot proceed as suggested.
Absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman.
Andrew, last word.
Yeah, but what I wanted clarification of is how long that position will be held by Essex and who will then take the next year.
That's a decision for each year in turn. Councillor Lee Scott will have it for the year ahead. That's the only agreement we're making today, and that's actually is normal. My extension was agreed at that time. It wasn't agreement for 2 years. I didn't look to be the chair for 2 years. I intended to be the chair serving the 3 local authorities for 1 year. Circumstances required me to stay. So that's why I would have to have a look at this. Who is on the joint committee, what the circumstances are, and what the parties think is best and in best interests of the project. I look forward to all, Lee, with your experience of Whitehall. I look to all you can bring to bear on this. Any other remarks on this? If not, I'm going to close the conversation and go to the vote. No. Could I ask members to show if they agree with the proposition, Councillor Lee Scott as chair? Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstaining? 1 abstention. That's carried. Thank you very much. Let's go on to item 2, election of the Deputy Chairman of the Joint Committee. So to elect, we need a proposition. Lee.
Yes, Chairman. Can I propose Councillor Carlo Giulia?
I would. Thank you, please, Andy.
I'll second that, Chair.
Can I ask for any other contrary nominations? There are none. Can I ask members, please show if you so agree? Okay, yes, unanimous. Thank you. Right, item 3, apologies. I beg your pardon, Carlo.
Chairman, just thank you very much for the nomination and for having elected me. I just a point of procedure. I would like to propose that you continue the chair for this meeting, and then the new arrangement for the chair and vice chair kick in from the next committee meeting, if it's acceptable with everyone.
I am prepared to help if that would be helpful. Is that our colleagues content we so work?
Content.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Goodyoung. Right, apologies for absence and substitution.
Thank you, Chairman. Just the one apology to report this evening, as Councillor Platt's already alluded to earlier. Apologies from County-Councillor Leslie Wagland, and Councillor Mark Platt, County Councillor Mark Platt, is substituting on her behalf. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, and Mark, thank you for struggling through the traffic to get here. Good to see you. There is fortunately no fines for a phone going off. Mine might follow yours, will it? All right. Thank you for the light relief. Right, item 4, after that prompt, which I now will look at my phone. Minutes of the previous meeting of the Joint Committee, which are on pages 7 to 28. This is our meeting on the 5th of September. And actually, for some of us, instructive to read it because it sets the scene for today. Because we went through then what we expected in terms of modifications to the DPD, and we touched on the DPD itself. Since then, we've looked further, and including at stewardship. So any observations, any issues rather, with the minutes as drafted? Please, Andy.
I'm prepared to propose that we accept them as a true record.
Somebody second? Thank you. If we make a change, we'll go to you, Mark. Thank you very much. Okay, are we so content? Show? Thank you very much indeed. Can I just say, I think an excellent record, and that's very tough work to write so long, so richly, so well. Thank you. Very readable. Okay, declarations of interest. I ask members to declare if you have any interest, pecuniary, vegetable or otherwise. I see none. Thank you. Public speaking, we offer that opportunity of have your say, but we're going to take this with the items, I think, as we go. So we will go to the first item, which is the report A1, and the way this will work, our officers, mindful that although many will have been through these papers, and they are, in my view, clear, it would be helpful to any tuning in now to have a resume and a reminder, and we'll go from there. So let's have the presentation first. I think, Amy, it's yourself for the first item. Then we'll go to public speakers, and then taking account of that, I'll see if there are any additional observations from fellow members. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you bring up the slides, please? Thank you. Report A1 has been brought to the Joint Committee following receipt of the Planning Inspector's final report and conclusion of the examination in public of the development plan document for the Tendring Colchester Borders Garden Community. This follows the examination hearings held in May of last year and the public consultation held on the recommended modifications last autumn. With the incorporation of the Inspector's final set of main modifications, which can be found at Appendix 2 to the committee report, the DPD has been found sound and legally compliant by the Planning Inspector. This conclusion to the examination now gives the councils the ability and authority to proceed to formally adopt the plan. Adoption of the DPD will provide an up-to-date, robust and sustainable basis for guiding future growth and development within the garden community. Following the hearings, the Inspector issued a schedule of modifications and instructed the councils to go out to consultation. This schedule of modifications was brought to the Joint Committee at its formal meeting held last September, and updates to reflect the modifications were made to the DPD Sustainability Appraisal and Habitats Regulations Assessment. All representations submitted as part of the public consultation were provided to the Inspector, along with those mentioned updates. The Inspector's final schedule of main modifications does not depart substantially from those which were published for consultation. The Inspector has removed 4 modifications which relate to the DPD policies map. These have been removed as the policies map is not defined in statute as a development plan document, and therefore the Inspector does not have the power to recommend main modifications to it. Notwithstanding this, those changes are required to correct typographical errors and ensure that the relevant policies are effective, and the Inspector has accordingly noted the need to implement the changes. The policies map has therefore been updated and can be found at Appendix 4 of the committee report. The only other changes made relate to updated numbering and ordering of the modifications. In his report, the Inspector concludes that the DPD complies with all relevant legal requirements, that the DPD is robust, that it meets national policy requirements, that it is consistent with the Section 1 plan, and that it seeks to positively promote its vision in delivering a garden community. He has also concluded that it is likely to be effective in delivering new homes within the plan period. Now that the DPD has been found to be legally compliant and subject to the modification sound, the councils can proceed to formally adopt the plan. The councils can only adopt the DPD in accordance with the Inspector's findings. No further amendments, additions or modifications can be made to the DPD at this stage. The only alternative option to lawfully adopting the DPD with the inspector's modifications would be to withdraw the DPD and either begin the plan making process again or to otherwise abandon the process. As part of the inspector's full and comprehensive report, the inspector has highlighted 4 main modifications as being of particular significance. These being amending Policy 1 to clarify that should the provision of the Park and Choose facility be located south of the A133, it should not prejudice the full and comprehensive expansion needs of the University of Essex. Amending Policy 2 to ensure that the minimum requirement of 10% biodiversity net gain is met across the master plan area as required by current legislation. Amending Policy 7 to ensure that the DPD carries forward the requirements of the Section 1 plan to secure funding and delivery of the rapid transit system. And lastly, removing reference to a potential future community infrastructure levy charging schedule, which would be subject to a separate independent examination if that proceeded. It should also be noted that the main modifications carry forward the Section 1 plan requirement that the full delivery of the A1331 link road must have a full funding commitment before any planning approval for the garden community is granted. Officers would also like to draw to the attention of members Policy 8, being sustainable infrastructure, and the pioneering approach within the DPD to achieving net zero through the use of 3 metrics. This policy requires the construction of buildings with net zero carbon emissions, achieved through energy efficiency, the use of renewable energy generation, and the absence of the use of fossil fuels at the garden community. Consequently, Policy 8 goes further than current or planned building regulations. The inspector concludes that the policy has been appropriately evidenced and justified. This policy seeks to secure the very highest standards of energy efficiency and innovation in technology to reduce the impact of climate change across the garden community, and is a groundbreaking policy development that has not been achieved elsewhere. The importance of ensuring that the councils have an up-to-date adopted DPD for the garden community cannot be understated. The existing local plans will become increasingly out of date and do not provide the site-specific evidence policy framework to secure an exemplary and comprehensively planned garden community underpinned by Garden City principles and supported by the right infrastructure delivered at the right time. The adoption of the DPD will enhance the Council's policy position, building on the strategic policies within the Section 1 plan. On its own, the Section 1 plan does not provide the level of information and specific policy requirements detailed within the DPD. The DPD is based upon extensive evidence and provides a clear policy basis to ensure the delivery of associated infrastructure, including but not limited to education, health and transport. Policy 9 sets out that developers will be required to make direct provision or contribute towards the delivery of all infrastructure as defined in the Infrastructure Delivery Phasing and Funding Plan. There is no corresponding reference to an infrastructure schedule in the Section 1 plan policy. The Section 1 plan also does not include the definition of appropriate land uses and their locations, such as the strategic green gaps and Salary Brook Country Park and key employment areas. Without the DPD, developers could bring forward alternative proposals in any part of the original area of search. An up-to-date and adopted DPD will enable decisions to be considered against the most relevant local policy framework, with an expectation that decisions would be required to comply with the policies in the development plan as a whole. Whilst seeking to support and achieve sustainable development, the ability for the councils to shape and influence planning decisions is significantly enhanced with the adoption of the DPD. Should the DPD not be adopted, or adoption is delayed, the councils would only have the higher level policies within the Section 1 local plan against which to make decisions on applications. The NPPF states that where the development plan is out of date, permission should be granted for sustainable development unless any adverse impact of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits or other policies indicate otherwise. It is therefore important to proceed with the adoption of the DPD to ensure it meets the requirements of national planning policy, so that together with Section 1, it can be relied upon by the councils acting as the local planning authority. As you will be aware, both Tendring and Colchester are in the process of reviewing and updating their local plans. A decision not to adopt the DPD would have implications for the local plan process at both authorities, and other locations that might or might not need to be considered to make up for any potential development shortfall that results. This could leave both authorities more vulnerable to speculative planning applications, the presumption in favour of development, and planning by appeal. It would also reduce the degree of control the councils could exercise, with the ongoing ability for the councils to manage growth within the garden community area compromised. Adoption of the DPD is an important milestone and represents a further step towards securing a sustainable and exemplary development. It provides clarity and a detailed evidence framework which will guide the developers in the preparation of planning applications and against which future decisions will be determined. At each stage in the project programme, we have seen additional levels of security and information emerging. Adoption of the DPD is a pivotal moment which will move the programme from policy development to development management. At Appendix 5 of the report, and as shown on the slide in front of you, you can see the projected project timeline. The DPD provides the appropriate level of information for this stage in the planning process. Apprehension and concerns regarding detailed elements of the garden community, such as transport modelling, healthcare provision, schools and phasing, are understood and fully appreciated. This next level of information will come forward with future planning applications, which will be subject to full public consultation. The adoption of the DPD secures the requirement for these details and provides the control in the determination process. In conclusion, it is recommended that the Joint Committee note the outcome of the examination as set out in the Inspector's final report, and that they agree that the modified version of the DPD be referred to the full Council at both Tendring and Colchester with a recommendation to agree formal adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Amy. We're going to take public speakers now. We may or may not respond at the time. I want to sort of see how they come together to some degree. All right, so let Russ forward, please. Thank you. Russ Edwards. You know your way forward to that desk over there.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to the committee. Latimer have requested an opportunity to speak this evening in favour of the modified DPD and to urge members to support the recommendation before you. Members will be aware that Latimer is supportive of the DPD, which we believe provides a sound and robust policy framework for this nationally important project. Indeed, our master plan proposals follow both the principles established in the policy and the spatial framework outlined closely. Members will also be aware that we are currently undertaking a final pre-submission round of public engagement with the local communities, intended to demonstrate how the designs have responded to previous rounds of engagement, whilst putting more flesh on the bones of the first homes, employment spaces and community buildings, and the early open space to be delivered. Along with the DPD adoption process, this is of course a key milestone en route to submitting our hybrid planning application to officers later this summer. We are optimistic that, once the DPD is adopted, we can look forward to continuing our constructive and proactive engagement with officers and members over the final few months ahead of us to ensure that the application is in accordance with the DPD and the community's expectations for such a critical project. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Support that's welcomed. We'll reflect on it in our own conversation. Thank you. Second speaker, Rick Andrew. Rick, I've called you in the order I have you, so take your opportunity. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors and joint committee. For me, the inspector's report raised two key issues which really do need to be addressed. First, as we've already heard, the link road is an essential prerequisite to development. That's because its main purpose is to relieve congestion on the 133, especially westbound. Most Garden Community commuters will travel west. So Garden Community traffic must be able to exit onto the A120 in the critical morning peak. The afternoon peak is less critical. Secondly, the university, as the inspector has noted, does have ample space for expansion within the existing site. If you're not convinced of this, take any bus through the university and sit on the top deck. Observe how much vacant space there is around this large campus and how much of the site is wasted on surface level car parking. The huge car park between Knowledge Gateway and South Court is almost empty and could accommodate Sports Centre plus various other buildings. But the inspector surprisingly failed to note that university expansion in the UK is a thing of the past. Universities all over the UK are closing courses and laying off staff because UK students can't afford it, and especially overseas students are not coming because they can no longer bring the families. So I suggest that all references to the UK expansion should be deleted and that its development plan should be concerned solely with the Garden Community. The response of some universities, for example Newcastle and Southampton, to the changed circumstances is instructive. They're opening new facilities, new faculties in India, which is innovative, is lateral thinking. They're being flexible in response to significant changes in their environment. The lesson here is that 2019 assumptions are no longer valid in 2025. In contrast, when Essex Highways were told that no, you can't have 100 million to build a link road barely a mile long, was their response flexible? Was it innovative? Did they think, how can we simplify this expensive scheme? Do we really need a dual carriageway? And when do we need a dual carriageway with major roundabouts? No, they insisted there is no alternative, give us more money. And they still insist there is no alternative, give us more money. But there is now an affordable alternative proposed by, not by me, but by the chair of the Community Liaison Group sitting behind me a few weeks ago, which allows westbound traffic to exit the Garden Community via the 120 in phase 1 in the critical morning peak, simply by opening up two of the slip roads. No flyover, no expensive earthworks, relieving the chronic congestion on the A133 in the morning peak rather than exacerbating it. Several competent people have reviewed this proposal and nobody has raised a valid objection, but highways still say there is no alternative, give us more money. A responsible project manager will be extremely grateful that somebody, doesn't matter who, does it really, has finally come up with a simple, cost-effective, affordable alternative to the ridiculous plan
Bear
for a
with
motorway
me,
stand.
you're over your 3 minutes. If you could close, thank you.
Thank you. I will. And no, this is not going back to the drawing board. CLG's proposal is compatible with the long-term design. It just implements only those components we actually need in the short term. I note that the next step, I'm concluding, is a transport assessment, which is happening imminently. It should seriously consider an affordable alternative, which could deliver the most important aspects of the link road in phase 1. But I suggest the transport assessment should be carried out by truly independent experts in this field, not by Essex Highways, not by Ring by Jacobs, nor any of their buddies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Manda O'Connell, please. Welcome, Manda.
Thank you very much, Chair, Councillors and ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. On behalf of the TCBGC Community Liaison Group, I would like to recommend the adoption of the DPD, but with the recognition that we strongly believe that the full benefits and aspirations of the TCB garden community cannot be achieved without the full link road completed. I think many of us feel that way here. Recognise the importance of that, linking the A133 and the A120 and in operation as originally envisaged with the award of the Housing Infrastructure Grant from Homes England some nearly 10 years ago. We thoroughly support the GC's aspirational goals for active travel and employment targets within the garden community, but would point out that without a road link to the northeastern corner of the search area adjoining the A120 and designated for a business park and employment, this latter target is already defeated. It's also the CLG's opinion that a single road in and out of the GC, making in effect a cul-de-sac, is likely to adversely impact the likelihood of selling homes when the A133 route into Colchester is likely to remain severely congested and potentially deteriorate even further despite the planned RTS. It will bar potential residents of a new community that need to commute for work and for whom an exit onto the A120 for routes to Ipswich, London, North Station and Stansted, as well as the logistics hub at Harwich, would have been ideal from doing so. Whilst the CLG, and I take account of Rick Andrews' contribution a few moments ago, have been persuaded that other means of linking the two roads as a temporary measure that have been suggested rather than the current plan, which has planning permission, are not viable due to time constraints. We do welcome the efforts that have been made by Sir Bernard Jenkin and Pamela Cox, local MPs, to engage with Homes England and for the debate secured with the housing ministers to seek the wherewithal to complete the linking despite the budget shortfall. We recognise that as a great achievement. Massive step forward. As a result of this engagement, our understanding is that Essex County Council has been invited to put in a funding application. This great step forward. I would like to ask, however, on the progress of this funding application, number one, and secondly, the recognition of the urgency to acquire whatever is needed as close to the completion of this first phase of the road as possible, so that the entire link road is completed as the first house building begins, thus allowing for the full intended benefits of the garden community to come into play from the start. Otherwise, this shortfall and lack of linking will be hobbling the plan which has been worked on for years, a plan planned by an enormous range of stakeholders for a flagship development providing the necessary housing for our area, preventing speculative development with sustainable homes that are ecologically friendly, sustainable infrastructure and garden community principles to be proud of and benefit its residents and the communities around. So I have those two questions, Chair, if that is possible.
Thank you very much, Amanda. We'll address those when we finish. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor William Sunnox. William, if you would come forward, thank you.
Good evening. Yes, look, I'm basically supportive of this scheme, and those who think I'm not are just wrong. But I am concerned about the DPD. During the inspection, I kept on feeling that the carpet was getting near the ceilings because so many problems were being swept underneath it. And of course, the link road is the biggest one. And the emergence of the news since the inspection that Latimer, the developer, thought that always assumed that they wouldn't have to contribute towards the link road until year 15, when everyone else thought it was year 1, is really a major misunderstanding that I feel needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. And I think we could get some clarity on that this evening. And that if we can't, and if it really is that there's that bigger gap, we need to figure out how to resolve it. I've looked back at the appraisals, every single appraisal in the public domain has had that spending in year 1. The infrastructure delivery and funding plan has it in the first phase. It's completely clear that that's the case, and that any assumption made that it was year 15 is putting the telescope to the wrong eye. So I feel that that needs to be addressed, and that the inspector, if he knew that, would be concerned and would be seeking answers on it. And the way forward, I mean, you know, sometimes these problems occur, and I feel we've got to be realistic about it, and that we've got to get the problem out on the table, and we've got to start looking at the appraisals again and seeing how it can be made to work on a phased basis. This is something we at Colchester have asked for with a resolution with the whole council. But again, that's been kicked forward and shoved under the carpet. We really need to get this out and sort it out if we're going to deliver what we want to in the way we hope to do.
Thank you, William. We'll address that in a moment if we may. We'll do that. That's the way we work here. Thank you very much indeed, though. Right, the critical issue out of the sum of all those remarks, so I'd like to go to that and then we'll go round to colleagues. I'll go to officers first. Is clearly around the link road. There is a welcome from our speakers, as there is more widely, for the ambitions and the challenges we're setting to developers for the garden community, to garden community principles. The delivery of the DPD is ambitious and a set of related challenges that, if delivered, would provide a place of quality. There's no meaningful challenge I've seen to that or heard here. But the link road, boy, that's a big bit of grit, isn't it? So I'll go to Jonathan, if I might, in the first instance, Jonathan. Now, this is not new, but if you can make sure you talk as frankly as you can to where we're at, when we will know what we will know, and to the extent you can, address the issue of timing. Now, the only bit of context I add to this, as Jonathan gives this thought, is, of course, we do have an understanding. We do have funding, significant funding already. We have an understanding with Latham and the County Council, but it's translating that into a viable way ahead, which we are collectively agreed needs support from government for a conclusion. So I welcome any elaboration from colleagues, but first of all, I'd like to go to Jonathan as our lead official here.
Yep. Thank you, Chair, and to speakers for a number of questions. In my initial response, and I'm sure we'll come back as the debate progresses, I'll highlight a few key factual points and try and respond to some of the questions that I picked up. It's worth everyone being aware that in the DPD policy, which is the agenda item at hand, there is the safeguard around the way in which the planning application will be determined, and this is GC policy 7. I've got it highlighted here. So the committee who determines the application ultimately, when it comes forward, would be operating under a policy framework, if the DPD is indeed adopted by the two planning authorities, that before any planning approval is granted for development of the garden community, or any part of the garden community, the full delivery of the A120, A133 link road must have both secured planning consent and a commitment to full funding must be demonstrated at that point of determining and issuing a planning approval. And that policy has been altered and I would describe strengthened during the examination process and the policy development over the last 12 months and prior to that. We do have the benefit of a link road scheme that has full planning permission, which was granted in 2021. That planning application, the process of determining the permission for the full link road, was subject to the normal democratic processes around planning, and due process was followed. We also have approval to deliver that link road scheme in phases. And as a reminder, if you haven't noticed on the A133, the first phase of the link road, which involves the A133 junction and 2 junctions for the future garden community, is all under construction in contract between Essex County Council and our contractors Octavius, with the benefit of the HIF funding which we secured, the Housing Infrastructure Fund. That funding also relating to the rapid transit system delivered in 3 sections across Colchester. So we have the benefit of an existing planning permission, which is the scheme which is in the public domain with much documentation, and it includes a full kind of all directions junction where at the north of the A1331, which is the new name for the link road, with the A120, so a dumbbell-style junction with movements in all directions. And we remain of the strong view that that is the best piece of long-term infrastructure that this part of the world needs, especially in light of the long-standing Section 1 and before plans to bring forward significant development in the form of the garden community. I would say that at many stages and going forward, we remain open and interested to any party who has ideas, concepts, and is willing to invest thought, time, and technical effort in how you might deliver an A120 connection that minimises any unnecessary or kind of overblown specification or costs. The councils would be interested in that. Government agencies such as Homes England, who we are currently engaged with to seek further funding for Phase 2, would of course be interested in a cost-efficient scheme. And Latimer, the master developer of the garden community, who in the Memorandum of Understanding and in the DPD modelling are assumed to make a significant developer contribution to the link road, would of course also be incentivised to minimise costs. So we are open to that, and I do hope there has been no sense of anything being discounted or dismissal without due consideration. Much of that consideration was at the planning application stage. Other appraisal of different options was undertaken as part of securing the funding for the link road in the first instance. It must be noted that the A120 itself, many people in the room will be familiar with it, is part of the National Strategic Road Network. It's a National Highways asset, not an Essex County Council asset. National highways, if I may paraphrase, are very protective. They have high standards for how their road network is altered. So there are a number of safety considerations, congestion considerations that come with and have influenced how the dumbbell junction has been designed. There is nothing in the DPD policy that precludes any party, the councils or Latimer, seeking a new planning permission for a different, indeed a smaller or a cheaper link road scheme. The option for that is not precluded by the DPD policy, which is the decision for the committee. However, we remain of the view that the full dumbbell junction is the best solution. It allows for, in time, the level of movements that will be required from vehicles accessing the garden community and the Tendring Peninsula, and it is on the basis of that scheme that we are seeking further government funding. Amanda O'Connell from the Community Liaison Group asked about progress of a further funding application. I think to give it its formal status, what Homes England on behalf of government have asked us for, and we did also have the ministerial meeting, which I think you alluded to, is an information pack around what Phase 2 needs. You know, crudely, what is it? What does it do for the government? What does it do for the locality? How much would it cost? How quickly would you deliver it? So we are still working on finalising that information, making sure we have robust technical analysis of that, and that we make the best possible pitch to the government for further funding, further grant funding, which would support the earliest possible delivery of the full link road, which is what I'm speaking, I hope it's okay to assume, I have heard many times at this committee is what all committee members and council authorities aspire to, the earliest possible delivery of the full link road. I'll leave my remarks there, but happy to come back and pick up or clarify or expand any of those points.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. That has covered the heart of it. I'll go to members, Andrew Luxford-Bourne and then Councillor Goodlamy.
Okay, I'll start where you finished, Jonathan. I don't think it's an aspiration that the link road is delivered in the early phases. It's a condition of it even qualifying to be a sustainable development. That back when we did the sustainability assessment, this site would not have made it past go if it hadn't had a rapid transport system and a link road. And at no point in Section 1, which is the policy that we do have in place, has it ever been suggested that it wouldn't be delivered previous to any house building. I'll go backwards. I think the DPD, it's been a long journey, and it's something that, we all set our expectations, and we said it was something we wanted to be proud of. I am a total anorak. I love a bit of policy, and I've kind of in part really enjoyed the process. And I believe that there were many modifications that came forward post consultation that have improved the level of detail and the policy in general. But not coming from people like the health authorities, Sports England, etc., etc. I don't agree with what is in the summary presentation for this, that there were 4 key amendments that were critical. I've got about 18 that I still really am uncomfortable with, but rather than bore you all with why every single one of them I feel is not doing us the care it needs to, I'll focus on 2, which is MM37, which contradicts, in my opinion, Section 1, and also a condition of soundness, which is that there is a socio-economic uplift for both the community and the local area, and that's that we were supposed to be providing 30 acres of employment land. It's been clear from all of the consultation events that Latimer have held that they do not plan to bring the employment area forward as part of this hybrid application, which includes the entire site. So I don't see how you're going to get 1 job per household, especially with reference to what Councillor Andrews said about the university, through a primary school and a couple of shops. It's not going to happen. And that was obviously a clear benefit, not just for those moving there, but for us generally in the local area. The other one, which is no longer an elephant in the room because we keep talking about it, for me focuses on MM51 and MM64, which basically allows a get-out clause for delivering that that link road by saying we can do a new transport assessment. Why? Why have we done that? That was never the intention of this this project, right from 7 years ago, or whenever it was we first put it on the table and issues and options. There was always going to be a full link road, and now for some reason, obviously because we haven't got enough money, we're allowing these basically concessions. Now that wouldn't be so catastrophic if it wasn't for what we recently learned from the briefing document that Latimer gave to Homes England, which is when they signed the MMU, they had their fingers crossed behind MMU, Memorandum of Understanding, they had their fingers crossed behind their back because they were saying it won't be pre 15 years. Equally, they've said in that they believe, even though they haven't done the traffic assessment, that 4,000 is the magic number. Now, that to me is predetermining something, but they're not liable to the same stuff as we are. But people, if you wait for 4,000 houses, that's 2043. Now, when I travelled here this evening after the rush hour, I was diverted via freighting to get here, because the A333, even now, even without any additional homes, is it's a car park. It's a car park, not just in the rush hour. It's at any time of the day, apart from 3 o'clock in the morning, perhaps. It is absolutely chock-a-block. There's no explanation that I can see why that westbound traffic is not at a significant level that we should be doing something about it now. Also, you mentioned it, Jonathan, the infrastructure delivery and funding plan. That says the link road needs to be there in phase 1. So why would we put a condition in that allows us to change that? I mean, that seems ridiculous to me. I think something Ross from Latimer mentioned is also community expectations. The public expect that link road to be there. We promised that. That was clear. And, if you ever want to follow it on social media, which is, you know, it's a depressing pastime. Everybody is moaning, you know, you can't deliver, you should not be delivering houses without a link road. And for me, I suppose I'm left in this dilemma, which is I want to support a piece of policy that allows us to get on with the job and do what we set out to do as a committee, and yet I don't have anything on the table to say we aren't just kicking this can down the road again. Government have not said they're going to come through with extra money. Latimer have said it's going to cost us 3 times what we put in our viability assessment, which means it's unviable for them to do it. You know, the only thing, you know, I welcome the community liaison group coming forward with a suggestion. You know, it's unfortunate, you know, you're encouraging people to do that, but you've already written it off. You've already told them it will never work. So, you know, they're trying to come up with a proactive way to make it happen. My only offer is that, you know, we could put a condition in, and I thought actually it was part of the conditions for the planning application, that no construction traffic can access that site from anywhere but the A120. That would do it, but that seems so vague and so frightening. I have a real problem with this DPD as it stands. I want it to be there to take us to the next level on this project. I don't see how anyone can reassure me tonight that we're going to get what we were promised, and that's a real concern, and it should be for all of us.
Thank you. I mean, I would like to see if there's anything in terms of, because there's a lot of observations and a lot of passion behind this. I think we all hope we all feel that in some degree, and yours is absolutely evident. But some of this is compounding from my perspective of what we will get to when we get to a planning application and discussion. Then I thought I heard very clear assurance and reinforcement indeed from the inspector of the critical importance of the link road at the earliest opportunity. All of us would be served better. There's no question if we'd had a clear statement from government, not whispers in the corridor and half a promise, because that's in difficult circumstances for the nation. That's just not reliable. But that's not the deciding point today. I have to remind all of us that we go back to the recommendations. This is about the inspector's view, or what we've already been through as a committee and approved, a strengthening of a document, to gardening community principles, that reinforces our position, which specifically reinforces that point around the link road. So I think, for my part, completely get the concern is felt around this table and beyond. We cannot have an answer. We should not let the answer in its detail affect our decision tonight. That lies ahead of us, you know, and I will be in the same place. This, to be viable, has to have commitments on funding and a way ahead to enable that link road. I think that's a shared position. That's for us as a planning committee to take a judgment of on the events and on the evidence when we get to it. But that's not tonight's decision point. That what we've got reinforces the commitments and the intention. It's not a decision point itself. Can I see if, Jonathan, there's anything you or Amy would like to pick up in a sort of factual sense, and then I'm going to go to those who put their hand up, so we move this around the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Just wanted to provide a little bit of clarity, just to advise you on a couple of the points there. Firstly, with regard to MM64, which Councillor Luxford-Vaughan referred to, which relates to the carrying across of the requirements from the Section 1 plan, that before any planning approval is granted for the development, full delivery of the A120, A133 link road must have secured planning consent, and a commitment to the full funding must be demonstrated. Now, that is a direct carry across from the Section 1 plan. The Section 1 plan in policy SP6 also has that requirement that full funding must have been secured prior to planning permission being granted. It doesn't say that that road needs to have been constructed. Moving on to another point relating to the MOU and the IDP, and just to provide a little bit of background and clarity to that. So the infrastructure phasing and funding, infrastructure development phasing and funding plan, it does assume that funding coming forward within the first phase. However, it is within the first phase. It doesn't say at the beginning of that phase, and that phase in itself is 7 years. So it doesn't provide that degree of clarity there. It is subject to further evidence, further viability work that would need to come forward. Also, the MOU, which was been signed between the councils and Latimer, which Latimer provide that commitment to, whilst it doesn't also say in that it would be at the beginning. It says, sorry, I've lost it now. It says as soon as reasonably, so Latimer as master developer confirms its commitment to fund the delivery of the second phase of the link road as soon as is practically and financially possible to do so, and that's subject to further viability work, further testing, precise timescales and trigger points will be established within the heads of terms for the Section 106 agreement. So that detail will come forward as part of the planning application.
Thank you. I want to go to others, and first of all, Carlo, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find it quite concerning when members of this committee are still challenging the finding of an inspector, especially when there was a due process to argue those arguments that we just heard this evening. This is not what we're here for. I'm glad you kind of made a statement that we're here to determine what's in front of us and stick to the recommendation in front of us. I'm delighted by the officers' responses, but I do find it quite concerning, Chairman, that we're still, after a due process of an inquiry that lasted several days, and those points were made there, we're still arguing on those. I think we moved on. I think it's, I would like to begin to congratulate officers for the sterling work they've put in finally putting in place a development planning document that has received the blessing of a planning. The 4 main modifications required will ensure that the plan has been positively prepared, and I read from the HIMSS books there, justified and effective, and most important, is consistent with national planning policies, especially when housing growth is one of the main drive of this current government. And although people are still there to criticise and question his finding and his final decision, and there will be other doubts over some other areas, as we've heard tonight. For me, this is a momentous occasion when the next chapter of this garden community project, when we hope we can now start talking about the colour of the front doors, the type of landscaping, what kind of solar panels will go on the roof, and so on. We have a very sound plan to work with and a set of most excellent officers to guide us through the whole process. And with Latimer, the development arm of Clarion Housing Group, the largest and most experienced affordable housing provider in the UK, we can absolutely progress to the next stage of the project. We will have time to have those arguments when planning application comes forward, and I think everybody will be quite clear to what's been required when that time comes. But for tonight, I'm glad you reminded members we have to stick to the recommendation in front of us. There will be challenges with the link road, as we discussed, and the provision of health facilities, but that's very closely following behind. On the first issue, on the link road, if government is really serious about housing delivery, then it must support the shortfall we have with the link road. It's simple as that. And the second, the planning application will include a comprehensive health strategy that is being currently worked on, and I would welcome officers' comments on that likewise. But otherwise, I think we have reached a terrific milestone this evening, Chairman, and when the time's come, I will be delighted to move the recommendation on page 32.
Thank you. I'm just going to say one thing, which is we have to accept the challenge and debate won't stop just because we're at a really good place. And it is in the same way in which, if I may say so, looking back to the previous planning inspector was looking back, and I could do that too. So this is a long and bumpy road, and I think it's right to acknowledge that we're not where we will have to get to. So the collective signals, if I can say this, has to include, for those listening in government and for those listening in our Latimer and Clarion developer friends, we've got to, although it's not for tonight, it's been reinforced by the inspector, we've got to send a very clear signal, which is for this to get home, viability has to be restored in the ways that we've been touching on. That link road must be delivered. We've got to have help and support for it. So no, I don't want to personally go back round it again. It's been well enough said, but it has to be said. So I'm going to go round to other members who haven't spoken. So Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of comments. I think we strayed away from what we were actually going to be deciding, personally. Yes, I understand the concerns about the link road, the concerns that have been raised about certain of the modifications. But what we've got to realise is that the inspector's looked at this. He said you need these main modifications. We've gone out to consultation. We've gone back, and he has found the DPD sound, so it can be adopted. That's a milestone, and I echo Councillor Guglielmi's comments about our officers who've worked damn hard to get to this point, and there's a hell of a lot more to come, I know. So I am quite happy to second the proposal that the recommendations shown on page 32. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Julie Young.
Thanks very much, Chair. Carlo sort of said a lot of what I would said, actually. Some of us have been here a long time, and officers probably feel the same, that they've been here a long time, and I'd like to thank all of those involved for the hard work. That's members and officers that has got us to this position, and also people in the community. Andrew O'Connell has been chairing the community liaison group for many years now, and although he's going to be directly affected in terms of where Manda lives, has always taken a pragmatic approach to this, as we as ward councillors in Greensted and other parts of the area which are around the area of this development. And I think the Labour group have always felt that we look at how many people are in temporary accommodation. I think about 400 at the moment in Colchester. I don't know what the figures look like in Tendring, but we do need more homes for people to live in. I think about local government reorganisation. I think about the call for sites that we've had in Colchester and our revised local plan and our considerations going forward. And only this week I've been lobbied about Bromley Road, which comes into the argument we're having around the link road. So if we are going to have 2,000 houses in the St John's area, that road, the Bromley Road, becomes very, very critical. And we already had the Gladman development, Carlo will remember that fondly, which Tendring District Council turned down and was won on appeal. So we kind of are looking at this here for the Tendring Garden community, but we also have to have an eye on what's going on in the revised local plan as well. I think this is a fantastic document, I really do, notwithstanding that we still haven't got the link road finalised. But I think it absolutely demonstrates how we should be doing planning. And it isn't the piecemeal approach of 150 houses there and 150 houses there that we have dotted on around Colchester. It is exactly how we should be doing planning, large scale with the infrastructure to support that development. And I think there's great opportunities here. I mean, I hear really good things about Clarion Latimer. I really hope that they work in partnership to create this in the best way it can possibly be created. And we have a framework in which we can judge our applications as they come forward. So I am happy to recommend adopting or recommending to our full councils that this be adopted. It is a good document. It's been improved as we've gone along. Those critical voices have been important to actually shape the final product. I'll just say, I mean, you know, I've got no ear of government and I can't make any promises, but it is an accelerator site. As others have said, if the government are ambitious about growth and development, then that's about enabling that development to come forward. And I hope there will be a good result on those negotiations with government, but we do need to have that link road completed. And I'm really pleased that there's been some strengthening of the wording in the DPD as a result of the modifications from the inspector. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Julie. And last to show, Councillor Lee Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of points. Firstly, I think Jonathan clearly mentioned that the protections at the planning stage are in place. And tonight is, as quite rightly said by Councillor Giuliani, that we're not talking about that tonight. We're talking about the adoption of a sound DPD. I think it's also worth mentioning that when it was said about, you quite rightly said, Chairman, about there's been whispers about the money, etc. or not, until the spending review has taken place in June, it is unlikely we would hear anything officially. That is standard practice for whoever the government of the day be. But they have a spending review, they then announce what projects are going to be done. But I believe the government's policy that they want new homes, I think as quite rightly said just a moment ago, the need for new homes, and they recognise the fact that there needs to be the money to do that. And there will be many trials and tribulations as we go forward, but tonight is about adopting the DPD, which has been found to be sound, and like others who have spoken just before me, I would recommend we do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close and ask for recommendations to vote. I'll just say I've been fairly silent myself. I'll try to be, I think this is fantastic work and difficult work, and it sets a standard we should take some pride in. The fact that it's been strengthened is a reality of the engagement with the inspector, not just him working in isolation as well. So, I think we can take real pride in this. A long way to go, but we made real progress. So, can I ask for a recommendation to Councillor Goodwill?
Seconded by Councillor Baker.
Thank you. I'll be reminded we have. I just want to make sure we weren't in a queue to jostle for recommendation and seconding. But Cardo, you have recommended. Councillor Baker, Andy, you have seconded. Can I put this to the vote then? Those in favour, as set out in the recommendations, that we note the outcome of the examination, as it's described here, and the conclusion that the DPD with the main modifications legally compliant, meets the test of soundness and can proceed to formal adoption, and agree between us that the modified version of the DPD, as described here, is referred to full council, both Tendring District Council and Colchester City Council, with recommendation to agree formal adoption. So as described here on page 32, are we content? Do we agree?
Agree.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? One. Thank you. Noted. That's passed. Congratulations, everybody, and thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
We'll now go to report A2 in the same style as before, with I think, who's going to be speaking to this? Can I just be sure? Thank you. We'll have officers first.
Thank you, Chair.
And then I'll invite those who want to speak from the public, and then we'll, as before, we'll go to a discussion amongst members. So, Chris, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few slides I'll briefly run through. I thought it would just be useful just to set out where we are on stewardship and how we've progressed over the past few years. So stewardship is of course a requirement in the Section 1 local plan. There's a high level policy requirement that stewardship has to be planned from the outset of the development. That is then taken forward in the DPD, which includes a more detailed policy, and also helpfully includes a set of core principles which should be embedded into future stewardship arrangements. I thought it was just worth maybe pulling out a few of those principles just to give a bit of an understanding about what the aspiration is. So the first one, to achieve a high quality of place. Stewardship at its core is about the legacy of the development after it's been developed. So, we have excellent policies regarding design. We have aspirations for high quality public realm, green infrastructure. However, those assets are only as good as how they're maintained over time. So stewardship is about putting in place the right governance and management to look after those assets. It's also about number 3 on that list. It's not just about estate management, it's also about community development and cohesion. So it's not just about looking after physical assets, it's also about looking after the community and having resources in place that can help new residents mix in, be welcomed and feel more like they're part of a new community and not isolated. And lastly on that list as well, it should also be adaptable and follow an incremental approach. The garden community will of course take decades to be built out, so it's really important that we retain a flexible approach to stewardship, given the amount of time that will pass before it is built out. So in addition to the DPD, we also had a workshop at Ebbsfleet Garden City towards the end of 2023 that members attended, where we discussed some high-level issues on stewardship. And then we have this current commission now, which was commissioned about a year ago. So the guidance itself is being prepared by Community Stewardship Solutions. They are an expert consultancy that specialises in community governance. The purpose of this guidance is to provide a framework for assessing the future stewardship strategy that the master developer will prepare as part of the planning application, as required by the DPD. So it will give the councils and the joint committee more knowledge and know-how for how to assess what is put forward as part of the application. It's important to make a distinction here that the document is not planning policy like the DPD is, it's guidance. So that means that future proposals don't have to be fully compliant with this guidance. It's there to act as an aid to the councils when they assess the strategy. It's not meant to be too strict, it's meant to be something that, like I mentioned, is meant to be adaptable and flexible. The report itself is also, in addition to providing us with that knowledge and know-how, it's also provides more information to local stakeholders, including the parish councils and local residents, which we know have strong views about stewardship of the garden community. They of course have, they want to be heard and they should be listened to through that process. So this report helps that conversation move on. And of course the guidance has to be consistently applied if it is to be effective. So in terms of the recommendations from the report, the main headline one is that sorry, thank you, Amy. The Community Management Trust is the preferred vehicle for the stewardship body, and the legal basis for that would be a charitable company limited by guarantee. In the view of the consultants, that offers a number of benefits in terms of how it can act commercially and how it's overseen by both the Charities Commission and Companies House, but also has some benefits from a tax perspective as well. Other recommendations include instilling a comprehensive community asset management arrangement. So this is, as mentioned, there will be a variety of different assets at the garden community, ranging from green infrastructure, community facilities, public realm, blue infrastructure, they all require specialist management. So having that regime in place is really important. Thirdly, provide community development and placemaking resources. So this is, as I mentioned earlier, having resources in place to be able to help the community be cohesive and organise events and activities to make sure that people don't feel isolated when they move into this new community. The next recommendation is in respect of the governance arrangements. So the report recommends that a subsidiary organisation is created. This could be a community interest company, and that would act as the engine room for the stewardship body. So that would be more commercial facing. That would manage the estate management arrangements and collect the service charges from residents and businesses. Other governance recommendations relate to creating a community forum, which will bring in a wider range of stakeholders, such as a university, potentially businesses in the area, so they can feed into stewardship discussions, and also neighbourhood advisory groups. So we know there's going to be 3 neighbourhoods within the garden community. Each neighbourhood could have its own forum to discuss any issues around stewardship, and that could then be reported to the board. Also recommends a slightly different approach for assets such as the Salary Brook Country Park, which we know is currently enjoyed as a nature reserve by residents of Grinstead and Longridge. So as an existing asset, we need different governance around that. So they've recommended a forum that they've called Friends of Salary Brook, which could act as a way of bringing together existing residents and new residents, so that there's reduced conflict between the communities and how that asset is managed in the future. It also recommends that ongoing discussions happen with the parish councils as key stakeholders, and as part of that it recommends a community governance review. So this would look at whether a new parish council could be created for the garden community and whether the existing parish boundaries should be moved. And that process is of course consultative, so there would be an awful lot of engagement with the parish councils affected and local residents to understand their views. And indeed, as part of that governance review, as part of the terms of reference for it, we could make sure that certain groups are highlighted so they can be targeted for engagement. And it also mentions the possibility of an annual rebate on parish precepts. Again, that's probably part of a discussion to do with the community governance review and parish boundaries. So the recommendation in front of the joint committee this evening recommends that the committee approves the Pathway to Stewardship report as planning guidance for future decision making in relation to stewardship and related matters at the garden community, and recommends to Tendring District Council that a community governance review be undertaken at the appropriate time to look at the current parish boundaries within the area for the garden community and consider whether there is potential to create a new parish for the garden community or unparished existing area in readiness for development of the garden community and local government reform.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris. This is really essential work. It'd be right to say that the joint committee members have helped shape this to some degree. We've been inside this conversation and we've visited, we've debated it between ourselves, and we've been able to, as I say, in my view, been able to contribute. This is a very thoughtful start. I hope it's understand that a lot of it would be acceptable to Latimer, but of course we're going to have to wait and see downstream. But let me just go to issues of clarification and then commentary. So any points that weren't clear from colleagues, or take it as you want. I'll start with Carlo. Thank you.
Chairman, yes, thank you. Are we?
I'm sorry, my apologies. I should have brought in our public speakers. So sorry, Carlo. Sorry, Russ, would you like to step forward? I've given you a prompt, haven't I? Say it's wonderful and you're looking forward to adopting it in your approach, and we can go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members will know that Latimer actively sought proactive engagement with the council-led estates management and stewardship strategy drafting process and have hopefully provided useful challenge and support throughout the process so far. To answer the Chair's question, Latimer does support the CSS Pathway to Stewardship and Placemaking report, and we very much look forward to progressing the principles established into a comprehensive strategy as part of our application documentation later this summer. Indeed, I can confirm that we have appointed the same consultant, CSS, to assist Latimer with this work, thereby ensuring continuity and consistency with the work already commissioned directly by the councils. As previously advised, Clarion Housing Group is the largest housing association in the UK. 350,000 people call a Clarion property their home, and this year we are 125 years old, testament to both our longevity and the long-term view on stewardship which we bring to all of our projects. Also, as advised, we will retain all of the affordable housing within the community in perpetuity, and we therefore hope that in due course we can celebrate 125 years here in this place. On that basis, we would like to add our recommendation to approve this item to that of your officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That was Russ Edwards. Rachel Fletcher, Ardley Parish Council, I understand. Welcome.
Thank you. So I've just got a few points on behalf of Ardley Parish Council. The first is that we note, and I don't know when the statement from the Crockford and Elmstead Action Group is going to be shared with the committee, but they're very keen and have made a statement to the committee today, have consistently been saying that they want the residents of Crockford Heath want to stay within Ardley Parish Council or within the Ardley Parish area. And so we kind of note and support that aspiration from our residents. Within the report, page 17, it refers to a range of different organisations, including the existing parishes, and describes them as having different visions, varied capacity, resources and ambition. So careful consideration needs to be given to working collaboratively and innovatively to find solutions that meet the needs of current and existing residents. I guess I'm just thinking, I hope that those aren't just empty words, and that there is a commitment to working collaboratively and innovatively and to valuing the role of parish councils within that mix of local organisations, because our experience so far has not been that our views are valued. And in fact, I'm sorry, Chris, but the presentation just now really didn't feel like parishes were there to do anything other than be talked at or discussed with, not actually to be full partners in potential delivery. I need to move on because there's not much time, but we would support a full community governance review. And clearly one of the things that needs to be considered is whether everyone within the new garden community should be within a parished area. I think probably as a parish council we support and understand the value of parish councils as democratic elected bodies very close to their communities, in enabling and building community cohesion, in being a voice for residents. And it's much more than being a residents association, which is my fear for some of the things that Clarion might develop. So in that community governance review, we may well be seeking to not reduce the parish boundaries within Ardley or to kind of reformat them in some way. I think there's opportunities for warding within any new parish areas that would allow all residents, existing residents and new residents, to have representatives that put their voices forward and that we all work together. We want to welcome these new residents into our parish. We don't want to be in opposition from them. And we haven't had enough involvement in this process to really get underneath the discussions. We've had some concerns really about how adequate this engagement process that's developed this report has been. I think there were a lot of assumptions at the outset about what we would be interested in. We were told what Elmstead thought. I don't know what they really think because we haven't talked to them directly, but that there's this fear that new residents are going to overtake or somehow swamp the existing ones. That is not our concern. We want to see this as an opportunity to grow, to develop, to provide additional support and services to our existing residents and to be part of the new community. And I think there's just an assumption that parishes wouldn't want or wouldn't be in a position to take on more, and that's absolutely an assumption that needs to be challenged, because there's a lot of change going on. We've talked about local government reorganisation already. There's every chance that more provision is going to be passed down to parish and town councils, and that we could easily get the economies of scale that would enable some of these things to be delivered by us. And there are really good reasons why parishes are a better place sometimes than more remote or theoretical new quangos or community interest companies or whatever they might be. So we were promised back in February, I was here two years ago, more than 2 years ago in 23, saying please involve us at an early stage, and we've only just at the end of 24 had our first meeting. So I don't feel that we've been involved as potential partners up till now. And I guess that the plea is really, if you pass this, which I dare say you will, don't tie us out of the process, and remember that we're partners, not just consultees, or we could be. I mean, there's a few more points. I don't know how much more time I've got, but okay.
Half a minute at least.
I think I'll. I mean, I suppose one other. Not just community and local government reorganisation. The other thing for Ardley is that we've got a lot of. It's mentioned in here actually. There's a lot of nationally significant infrastructure projects potentially coming our way, and they could come with community funds for transmission infrastructure as a new thing that the government have recently announced. There is every opportunity and every possibility that we would be in a position to grow, to create the economies of scale, to be able to really help to deliver some of this provision. So please involve us.
Thank you. I just want to say very quickly but directly, because you've been so direct with us, of course we are listening, and I'm sure the officers, we will want them to be following up. You've struck, from my perspective, you're recognising a reality which we know is going to be very uncomfortable for some people, but I hear it in the way of wanting to be part of that and contribute to it, and I'm sure fellow members will welcome that. So thank you very much for coming and for speaking so frankly as you have. I'm going to ask the monitoring officer, well, ours anyway, just one of the team, there's several of them round the table, which one should we go for? To share share the written statement that's been provided to us on behalf of Crockleford Heath and Elmstead Action Group, which was referred to earlier.
Thank you, Chairman.
Interjection at the back. Have you're coming forward to read it on behalf of the group? Okay, would you introduce yourself then, please? Okay.
Yeah, my name's Mr. Hall. I'm a resident of Crockleford Heath, and I'm part of the Crockleford and Elmstead Action Group. And I have a pre-prepared statement by Professor Anthony Vickers, who wasn't able to attend tonight. Would that be what you have? Thank you. This is a pre-prepared statement from Mr. Vickers, so I'm going to read word for word. Dear all, as I've not received a volunteer, okay. Right, this is my statement. The spokesman of the Crockleford Action Group, CAG, cannot attend this meeting as no notification was sent directly to CAG, even though they are the only residents group within the CG Broad area. We are saddened by the lack of consideration for residents. We have the following statement in relation to this meeting. In relation to the advice given to this committee from professional consultants, the residents of the Crockleford Heath community reject any notion of their governance being removed from the Ardley Parish Council. The residents of Crockleford Heath wish to remain part of a rural parish council and do not wish to be included in any new governance body representing the garden community as a whole. If necessary, residents will invoke a community governance review separate from any plans to do so by TDC. The statement ends.
Thank you very much indeed for coming forward. No. Amanda O'Connell. Once more, Amanda, as chair of the Community Liaison Group. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Chair. The CLG commends the stewardship and placemaking report and the excellent work carried out by Mark Patchett and his team in engaging with a wide range of local stakeholders and organisations, including faith groups, to produce it. Whilst it is recognised that the report outlines principles and a framework rather than how specific implementation will take place, we welcome the opportunity that this provides for the involvement of interested community groups from non-TCBGC settlements, for example, those consulted by the team, to help bring this about. By contributing their time and energies, as in page 23 of the report, volunteering to strengthen community ties, page 39, which states local procurement and support for community organisations to deliver services, and page 57, local groups and community groups to play a vital role in providing services. This will both enrich and support the fledgling community in its placemaking needs and help to achieve its full potential as a community and as a great place to live. Just thinking of our visit to Ebbsfleet in December 2023, where we were very impressed to find from a recent survey of residents that 83% of them loved living in Ebbsfleet. They were happy. We'd love to see that for the Tendring Colchester Borders Garden community. And as stated by the CLG right at the start of the project and as representatives of neighbouring communities, I'd like to restate our continued willingness and commitment to being involved in supporting and potentially participating in any stewardship body until it can be fully populated by garden community residents themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Amanda, as ever, for the positivity and the helpfulness of the response. It's so thoughtful and it really is welcome. Before I go to members, and that is the end of our public speakers, I think, I would just like to pick up, there are some points of detail, first of all, on the Crockford, Heath and Elmstead Action Group about notification. I'll ask the team to pick that up. If there's anything any learning we can take on that. I know we publicise and we really make an effort to connect and contact, but perhaps we can make that more direct next time. But can I go to yet another of our monitoring officers and ask for a bit of clarification around the issue of community governance review? This is not widely understood. Then, Chris, if there's anything else, I'll come to you on a factual basis, and then we'll go to members.
Thank you, Chairman, and members of the committee and members of the public. Because one of the recommendations in the consultant's report, which is before you to approve, includes the recommendation of a community governance review, the only way that can go forward is for a recommendation onto Tendring District Council as the principal authority for the area to give consideration to whether a community governance review should commence or not. There are a number of factors to take into account. One of the main factors is obviously local government reorganisation. When the document was produced, we weren't on this priority programme which has taken over our lives. You know, the reason for that recommendation in this report is an administrative requirement to get the recommendation from your committee back to Tendring District Council as the principal authority to make a decision on it. One thing I would like to reassure both the Parish Council and the campaign group is that we are due to commence a community governance review at Tendring. It's already planned in relation to some unparished areas within our district. At Tendring, we didn't rush into that. We had a decision at full council. We were asked as officers to go away and prepare a report to set out terms of reference of what that community governance review could cover. We've also given powers to one of our community leadership overview and scrutiny committees so that other members are involved in that process, and we're having meetings over the next month or so to get ready for that. The reason for saying that is there is plenty of scope for engagement in what the terms of reference of any community governance review could cover. And that is, to include opposing views, But what happens is that there is a consultation process. The national guidance on community governance reviews says to follow the outcome of consultation. That's what it's different to other pieces of consultation. It actually says to follow the outcome of that. So the reason for saying this is that, if the recommendation is passed this evening and it goes back to Tendring District Council, the council will have to decide if it's going to do a community governance review, and if so, when and how. So I want to manage expectations that might not be, as soon as some areas may think. It could, there are arguments for a community governance review to be done pre-local government reorganisation. There's arguments for it to be done post-local government reorganisation. A shadow authority, unitary, can be given that has got the powers to do a community governance review as well. So all those things need to be taken into account. So I just wanted to highlight what the process is, manage expectations on timescales, but if there is a decision for a community governance review to go ahead, there will be full engagement during that process, and it's something that we are committed to doing and are already doing in our particular area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think if you put it down to a sentence or two, perhaps the most critical thing is that if this starts, well, the finish depends on the consultation results.
Yes.
So this is, for those who like to use or misuse the word democracy, this really is a democratic process, and perhaps that will give some assurance that if there's a want, then that's going to get heard. If there isn't, that's also going to get heard. Thank you. Right. Any points of fact, Chris? If not, I'm going to go to members. Over to you.
No points of fact, just to thank the speakers for the comments, which are useful. I'm sorry that Ardley Parish Council didn't feel like they were properly consulted. I understand the consultants did speak with the Parish Council on a couple of occasions, but appreciate that has to be ongoing. I would just say that the guidance is not definitive. That is, we're not at that stage yet. It's meant to inform the future proposals. And through, as we've heard, the community governance review, the consultation on the application, there will be further opportunities for the Parish Council to feed into that process.
Thank you. And I want to reinforce that on behalf of all the committee. Continuity. Right? We're not stopping if this is passed, no more than we're stopping anything else we're doing. There's a continuous process involving our officers with our help and support. All right, I can go to members. Now, Councillor Carlo Guglielmi, you were first last time and second to the run this time around, but we'll go with the earlier attempt. Now I'm going to you, Carlo.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you. Yes, I will begin to support the comments from Ardley Parish Council. They have been besieged by several NSIPs, diversions, routes, mineral extraction sites, not just one NSIPs, but there's 4 on the horizons there, and they have got their work cut out. So they really need to be given more focus, really, as we heard from the clerk of the Parish Council, and with Latimer in the room, I very much hope that they'll take that on board. And on that point, Latimer are champions of stewardships. I've seen some excellent example of what's been done elsewhere. And the one comment that was given to us right at the beginning was that we're not here for the short term, we're here for the long ride. And they will be very keen to ensure that whatever strategies comes forward to the with the planning application will be sound and hopefully will have been consulted thoroughly with the likes of Ardley. And let's not forget Helmstead Parish Council. They're not here this evening, Chairman, because it's their full council meeting. And that's why there's no one here from Helmstead. And given the fact that most of the development will be in the Ardley and Helmstead current wards, I think they should, now that we've got to the stage, we've adopted we're going to recommend for each of our authorities to adopt the DPD likewise, as this committee has. I think it's important that more consultation and more engagement will take place with the two parish councils involved. I think the report done by Mark Patchett and his colleagues, it's very, very good. It's very sound. It's captured all the areas that we need to be captured: community asset, community identity, entrepreneurship, sustainability, the financial sustainability, the governance, the place making. There's nothing there left out because they're professional in them, and we've had a couple of sessions with them. We also had the benefit, as Amanda mentioned, to having seen what happens in Ebbsfleet, and I very much hope that this will kind of shape the future for the garden community. The one thing I would ask officer to explain, on between pages 310 to 315, there's all the population of the various membership on community forums, the trustees and the various other things. It does sound, and I've made this point before, it does sound extremely high in numbers. And bearing in mind that we're right at the offset, and I very much take it's not a policy document, it's a flexible thing that we need to do. I think it's right to question the amount of people that will be involved on the community trust and the community forum. I think I've counted about approximately 70 members with the various groups that will report back to that. And given the fact that it's a very new thing with not a house that in place yet, I think it would be very good to understand the time frame when these things will happen, and a flow chart maybe with all the various boxes, because at the moment it's not terribly clear to me, let alone what it's going to be to the general public. So that's one thing that would be quite good. And also another thing that I would ask officers to, possibly not for now, but to have a very clear understanding of the charging regime, because we don't want to see residents arriving in the garden community and then finding that they got some hidden surprises not bargained for. And I think that we need to be extremely clear. And I know if Councillor Wagner was here, she would raise that very point, because especially the stuff that goes underground and nobody sees, who takes the ownership of that? And so those are the two areas that I've got. So I just need some further clarification. That's all, Chairman.
Thank you. Let's note that and take that away, because we're going to be walking over this, despite the very welcome acceptance and support of both the document and the re-employment of the consultants here in their future work. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion around the reality of how guidance gets turned to practice. So look, your point in particular around numbers and the viability of those kind of approaches was something that I think we've talked about ourselves as an informal sessions and recognised. But thank you for the reinforcement on our last members, our officers, to take it away. Councillor Andy Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points. Obviously, there was a bit missing, this page that we've been provided with, so I'm presuming that we would have to add something to the recommendation A, just sort of that, with regard to any further document that's been provided, or
it's been amended formally, I think, and on the website, so clearly we'll have to be inclusive, but your point's well made.
And the second point, Chairman, is with regard to recommendation B, recommends the TDC, Tendring District Council, and Mrs Hastings just said about, it may take some time. Well, Tendring District Council may not exist when this comes in, so does that need to be reworded, or is there not a problem with it? It's just, something that came to
Lisa,
my
if
head.
you allow me, a point of principle for me is, and it's a very fair point because we're looking at changing structures, and some of us can feel, you can almost feel the ground starting to shift as well, can't we? But the reality is, as we are legally constituted, our decisions bind until otherwise agreed our successors. That's how I'm approaching this. So, while we're here, we're here. Lisa, do you need to add to that?
If you was to pass that recommendation, then it would be Tendring's responsibility to have that decision before our council as soon as we can, for our council then to make a decision on timing of that. And that's where I was saying then there's arguments for doing it pre-LGR and arguments doing it post, which our council will have to consider. So I'm assuming it would be maybe, is it going to be in the same report going to full council with the adoption, or a separate report? So it would go to that full council for them to make a decision on.
Thank you. Is that okay? I mean, the way I read it, and as in a lay sense, is this doesn't bind us in terms of the outcome. It just what it says here recommends, yes, a start. Yeah. Thank you. It's a good point to make. Councillor Andrea Luxford-Vaughan.
Thank you. It's an impressive document. I'm really glad. I think it's well overdue, but I'm really glad to see it, and I'm also really heartened by the fact that Latimer have decided to take on board that company to execute it within their plans. That's really reassuring. The community governance review issue, my understanding of that is that you consult the existing residents, and if the existing residents turn around and they say they want to be part of Ardley, or they want to do something new and to keep Elmstead what it is, nobody else can contradict that, because that's come direct from the household that is within that. So I think that's important, and I'm grateful that that's been restated. The only thing is that this is focused entirely on Tendring and not on Colchester, and I know that we're having discussions about the same process because of LGR, but there's so many more factors as to whether or not we as a council would go ahead and do it, and that leaves Wivenhoe in a kind of no man's land. That though there's no houses, there is a significant portion of Wivenhoe that overlaps certainly the Knowledge Gateway. Now, somehow the university seem to sort of think that even though they're putting businesses in there, they don't have to pay 106, which I think should be questioned for that Knowledge Gateway thing. We've made a big sacrifice to give land to the university, therefore there should be a contribution back to local communities. But I would make that point, that if you're building Knowledge Gateway within the parish of Wivenhoe, then Wivenhoe should see some planning gain from it. The other thing that I'm just picking up from what Latimer said in their statement was about all the affordable housing would stay within their control. Don't have an issue with that at all. But just to remind this committee that there is a statement of common ground between the two councils, that all affordable housing will be split half and half between the two authorities. Now, I don't know how that works when we become a unitary, but I think it's quite important for reassurance, certainly to my colleague at the end of the table that wants to build all these houses so that we can have this affordable contribution. Colchester needs to see its half of the houses, regardless of where the boundaries are. And I'm sure Tendring would equally want to make sure that their residents are looked after in that going forward arrangement. And obviously that doesn't come up in the stewardship document. I don't necessarily think it needs to, but I just wanted to sort of publicly say, let's not forget the agreement that we've got between the two authorities.
Thank you. And from my perspective, what really matters in a sea of changing thoughts about what the shape of local government will be is we are as certain ever is that it's going to be different, and the most likely probability is we're going to be more formally together. But as a moment in time, you're absolutely right. to remind us that we do have understandings. Of course, we're not into LGR yet, but Lisa Hastings.
Thank you. And where I said previously that there's pros and cons of timing of community governance reviews, again, when this document was produced, we didn't have LGR on the table, and we have, a border between the two council areas, hence the name, and the majority of the land was Tendring side, and you can see why the consultants focused on Tendring side with regards to that recommendation. And I believe it's unparished in Colchester's area. If we end up going through local government reorganisation and we end up with a unitary, as I said earlier, a shadow authority can look at the whole area and not just focus on Tendring's part. So that is a benefit of waiting till the shadow authority is there to look at that in its entirety when borders disappear.
Oh, we could have such fun, couldn't we? Let's go and just talk about LGR, shall we, instead?
No.
Or not. Right. Okay, look, thank you very much. Mark, I think. Councillor Mark Cousins and then Councillor Judy Young. I think Judy wanted to have a word as well.
Yeah. Okay, the first one is just something that I don't think is quite correct. I mean, the DPD, we use Crockleford, North and South as the three communities. On page 39 in the stewardship document, we actually use Crockleford and Central and South. And that's page 39 or 311. So that might just want altering, because it seems daft that we use one in one and not in the other. But going on to my comments, I think Ebbsfleet visit was excellent. And I think one of the things I took out of that was the positive sense of direction. There was a very strong direction there. And looking at, I'm particularly thinking about sort of government reorganisation of parishes, etc. I have experience of being mayor of a town council at the moment, where we have 2 towns within that town council and we have 3 villages, and trying to lead the whole lot is very difficult, because parts of the town council have totally different views to others. And I do think that it would be a better thing to be looking at a single parish council for that area, because I think if we're going to place shape, we do need someone who's actually going to drive the project forward. Because I took on board what the parish council chairman was saying, that it does sort of almost seem that there'll be an awful lot of people doing an awful lot of talking, but who is actually going to force the direction on forwards. And I think that having chaired a town council which is made up of very different communities, I think the only thing worse than that would be to have potentially 2 town councils either side of me that were also maybe pulling in a different direction. Because I think the document, whilst it's good, and I think we do need to have a stewardship document, and I do support it, is that it doesn't seem to really reflect human nature. Whereas human nature, I keep hearing Carlo tell us it's taken 14 years to get where we are now. Well, I think if you're trying to shape a place and you've got lots of different people, all with their different views, is to shape that place and to move it forward could be very difficult. So that's just my observations of experience of multi-communities.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. I think we all have some understanding and sympathy for that. Councillor Judy Young.
Yeah, thanks very much. We are, I think, spending a lot of time puzzling over local government reorganisation and how the bits of these jigsaws actually fit together, because, of course, they have got to fit together. And I suppose for me, timing is everything. Lisa, you talked about potentially delaying it till the shadow structure is in place, and that might be wise. But we've to the west, it's parished. To the east, St Anne's and St John's Greenstead is not parished, although there's quite a lot in here that relates to Greenstead in terms of Salary Brook and Friends of Salary Brook. So how that all fits together is going to be really important. You know, it's great that the community liaison group want to be involved until residents can kind of take the mantle themselves. But we really have to think about the timing of this and actually whether, I know probably Tendring is wanting to go earlier than perhaps, you know, Colchester is, but we need to look at how we deal with that in terms of synergy.
Thank you. It's a reminder, isn't it? We've got lots to do, and the separate Colchester conversation around our unparished area, and we tend to think, you know, the heart of the district, the heart of the city centre. I can't be sure, again, back to how this will work, actually about the outcomes. So it's not just the mosaic and the possibilities and the combination of them, it's actually the response to the whole process and where that will leave us. This is not going to be a matter we can resolve tonight, we agree, but thank you for the observations. I'm sure we're going to take away this very thoughtfully and in a measured way. It can't be the top of the list is how I would put it, but we have to find some time and space because it's a legitimate aspiration for some to have fine representation, for others to keep it in the form that they've got it. Look, thank you, that's a good conversation. Any other remarks before we close this item? Okay, but we have the recommendations on page 264. Everybody who wanted to speak has spoken. I know, yeah, thank you. So I'd like to thank you very much. Well, I'm just about to ask you, see you jumping ahead. I'm going to go and deliberately go past you and ask somebody else. So Councillor Goodwilmy and Councillor Baker have proposed and seconded. Are we content to agree?
We agree.
Thank you very much indeed, that's unanimous. At this point, I know that everybody doesn't want to go home and enjoy the last bits of warmth before the summer and therefore wants to stay on. Or alternatively, I could go to Councillor Lee Scott, who I remind him now is the chair, for what could have been the first word and is now going to be the final word for tonight. Lee.
Thank you, David. All I really wanted to do was I think we could all join to thank David for his excellent chairmanship of this committee, and I'm honoured to be taking over the chairmanship, but I think we all owe David a debt of gratitude. Thank you for everything you've done, and I know for everything you will do as well. So thank you, David. And can I also commend all of our officers for hard work that has gone into getting us where we are today. There is a lot more to do, but we are heading in the right direction. So thank you, and thank you, David.
Thank you. Okay, folks, go home.